Coming up next on the Union Label, we have a conversation with Hardy Williams and Ben Adair, Monumental movers and machinists. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Your title, of course, is Directing Business Representative for Machinist District 154.
That's correct.
And Hardy, you are with the Retiree Machinist Group,
Right.
delegate to the area council, and Benny, of course, is vice president. Now that we've got that out of the way, I would like you to share with our viewers your monumental move. I really enjoyed this story, and I think they will too. So the Workers' Memorial that had been in Frankfort for years, the state AFL-CIO is moving away from this headquarters to a different place. And they decide that the area council in Paducah can have this memorial if you come and get it. And you all volunteered to go and get it.
That's correct.
And then what happened?
You make that sound really easy. Go ahead, Benny.
We set out on this journey early one morning. It should have took about 8 hours to go up there and back to get it, and it took 16. We had
Now the trip up was uneventful.
right.
It was just nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, basically, it was just a trip up there.
Yeah,
We just had
no
a good
problem.
time talking, cutting
Right.
up.
Okay.
When we got there, we had to wait a few minutes on the crane and everything, but the crane came and
this is a stone that weighs about, you said, Hardy, about 7 tons.
Yeah, 14,000 pounds. Yes.
Okay.
it's granite.
Uh-huh.
It's down on 3rd Street, right there at the AFL-CIO, so you
Right.
can go by there and look at it, but it's solid granite. We backed up and the crane, he loaded it on the trailer and we set out for our journey back home. What we didn't know was that he loaded it, and when he set it on the trailer, it loaded heavy on one side. So we started back, and of course Larry Jaggers made a comment about he didn't think the tires would hold up and all that, and that's what a brand new tires. So
And Larry is
he's a financial secretary and treasurer
for the state federation.
Right, he was there then.
So he was a skeptic.
Right.
Okay.
So we get to Boston, which is about probably 40 miles out of Frankfort and 10 miles out of E-Town, and a tire blows out. And so we immediately pull over, but there's no place for us to change the tires because it's on the side that the guardrail's on, so I have to back up to I can get to an opening. And we backed up 1,600 feet, something like that, and of course I think that weakened the front tire, but we didn't have a jack that would lift the trailer, so we called the state troopers, and they gave us a number for a tire store, and we called the tire store, and they said, well, we'll be out there in an hour or so, So
And that was in Elizabethtown, the tire store.
that was Elizabethtown,
Okay.
10 miles east of Elizabethtown.
Right, right.
So I had a spare tire, and the gentleman came out and finally showed up, and he was not happy that he had to come out and do anything, but anyway.
Now, what day of the week was this? Was
It was through the week, Monday, Tuesday.
I think it was on a Wednesday,
Might have
actually.
been Wednesday, I
Okay.
don't know, but
Uh-huh.
anyway. He wasn't too happy, and the first thing he started in on us was why we had car tires on this trailer, and it wasn't car tires. They were the heaviest tar that I could buy from a local dealer, and I wanted 10 plies, but he only had 8, and that's all I could buy. But anyway, I told the guy after he changed my tire and put my spare on that I would just follow him back to his store, and if he had 4 new tires, we'd just put them on there, And he said, well, you can follow me back to the store if you want to, but he said, I drive 65, 70 miles an hour. If you can't keep up, well, you're just out of luck. And I said, so anyway, we paid him, and I tipped him and thanked him for his help and everything, and he takes off like a bat out of Memphis, and so we're just cruising along about 55 or 60, and we get about 10 miles or so on the other side, west side of E-Town, and my
Well, now, so you didn't buy the tires from
No,
the tire store?
not at that time.
So you just kept
Then-
on going?
my spare blew out.
Okay, oh boy.
So So I called him back and
Same guy?
same guy. He said, "Hey, it's me again, Margaret. You know, I need your help. Bring me one of those good tars that you got. Bring it to me." So he comes out about an hour later, and we're sitting there at this place, and it's awful because there's a hog barn and all that smell is drifting down right on us.
And this is warm weather, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Hot weather
Hot
to be
weather.
exact.
we're smelling that, and we, we were being very conscientious of what we were saying and everything. So we hadn't said a cuss word or anything. Not that we normally cuss, but
Yeah.
anyway.
That's very good
But
to hear. Okay. Yeah.
we hadn't said anything out of the way up to this point, and we named the place Hog's Ass, Kentucky. So you can bleep that out if you want to.
Yeah.
But every time we go through there now, we have a comment. It's
Yeah,
funny. But
yeah.
gosh, it stunk.
Oh.
I mean, it was awful. And
And it took him about an hour to get out there.
Oh, that's even better.
we put up with that for about an hour. And when he showed up with the tar, it really, really bothered me because the tar that he brought was so much better than what I had on my truck or my trailer was an identical tar to what, same brand,
Oh.
same size, same ply, everything. But he kept looking at me and laughing. I just kept my mouth shut. I thought, well, ain't no sense in stirring up a problem. So anyway, he changed that tar, and we took off again, and we got to Princeton.
That's a pretty good way.
Yeah.
So you made some
So
time.
the front tar on that side blew out then, and so we had to park the trailer, and go back and get it the next morning. But we got home about 9 o'clock at night. So we had a pretty eventful trip. Took us all day, and we talked about lots of things and had a good time. So,
Well, that's good to
but
hear.
we got the Monument home the next day, and parked the trailer down at AFL-CIO, and then 181 came out and removed the Monument and set it up for us.
But it actually didn't get home until the next day. So
Right.
you parked the at a gas station in
Gas
Princeton,
station. Mm-hmm.
and then you went back the next day and
Right.
and brought it back home.
Had
Now let me
brought
tell
two
you
new
the rest
tars
of the
and put on
story.
it the next morning and brought it on home.
Okay.
Now let me tell you the rest of the story. When the first tar blew out and the guy came and he told him all this, and he walked back over there while he was changing the tar, and we were standing there talking, and he was smiling but he had a serious look in his eyes, and so when he went back over to pay him, now this is the very first time I saw that he tipped him, and we walked back over there, and I said, "Benny, that really bothered you to tip him, didn't it?" And he said, "Yeah, it did, but I tipped him good." So I said, "You don't want to really talk about it because you know we're going to have to call him again." So we laughed about that when we got started. We laughed about that, went on down the road, and then we stopped at that other place. And when I was, of course, in the passenger side of the truck, and I got out, and we hadn't much more than, I'd flagged him backwards, but he hadn't got out of the truck yet. And so when he got out, that stench just rolled over him. He was said, "Good Lord, what's that?" or something to that effect. And I said, "Could be them, all that hog manure that they're moving over there at that hog house." Well, we got around where we could see, and sure enough, that's what it was. So we renamed that place, and like we laughed and come on down through there. And well, we finally got, when he came and brought the tar and everything, he still didn't say anything about the tar being the same brand and everything till we got back in the truck and was on our way. And then he said, "That Peckerwood brought us the same kind of tar as we had." And he said, "And I saw it, but I didn't say a word." And I said, "Well, you still scared we'd have to call him again?"
You might have been.
But
You
we
might have
didn't
been.
call him when we had the one
Yeah.
at Princeton. But he did make a good comment there. We pulled in there, and of course we was running on the rim, and got in there and got off the road and down in beside this little restaurant, and we were out of the way. And I said, "You think it'll be all right to leave that here?" He said, "Well, if anybody can hook to it and drive it off far enough that we can't find it, they're welcome to it."
They can have it. Yeah. Yeah.
So we had about had it at that point, but then the
Well,
next
now,
morning we started laughing all over again.
The new tires, you bought those where in Calvert City?
Yes,
And you brought them up yourself and mounted them yourself.
yes.
Okay.
Well, no,
No, they made.
we had, I took the spare and the other tire off before we went back. So I had 2 new tires put on the next morning, first thing, and then. we
And then
went
you
up,
brought
put
them
'em on.
back and put them on the trailer. So
Right.
yeah. So when people are heading down the 3rd Street, I hope they look at that a little differently than they had, because
I hope they can look at it and see the fun that we had bringing
yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
an important monument. It's a workers' memorial monument, and if the story will bring a little more attention to that and the attention that the unions pay to the working people, then that all our trouble was worth it.
And a lot of ceremonies are held out there.
Right. The base of that statue is made out of a piece of coal, and it's I don't know what it weighs in itself, but the very base of that is coal. Isn't that right? It's either coal or black marble. I think it's coal. I think it came from one of the coal mine
Yeah.
groups, one of the what is it? Mine workers.
United Mine Workers. Yeah.
United Mine Workers.
Well,
brought
that's
that.
interesting. And again, I hope people appreciate it more now than they did. Moving on to other topics, I always ask my guests the same question, and that is, what has the union movement meant to you as an individual, as well as to the American worker? Who wants to go first?
He does.
Okay.
That's a unique question, and to me, it means my whole life. Everything that I have has come from union wages, and everything that I've been able to do as a husband and a father and a grandfather and all that came from union wages. I've had health problems in my life, and the union insurance that we had through negotiating it with the corporation I work for has served me well. It's been a lifesaver. I don't know how I would have got along without it. It worked good for me. I first went to work right out of school for the IC Railroad here in Paducah, working in the shops as a machinist apprentice. Joined the union in August of 1964. My brother had been active in the Lady Garment Workers Union,
ILTW.
and as a teenager, I had went with him to picnics and things like that, and got to meet a lot of people, and I always knew the importance of the union, and so the first thing I wanted to do was to work somewhere where they had a union, and so I went to work at the railroad shops. Was lucky. That was a good place to work. Met a lot of good people. Still got a lot of good friends that I worked with down there. Learned a good trade. And then I went to work at Calvert City at B.F. Goodrich Chemical Company, and was lucky to stay there 30 years. And it's just meant everything. And the people that don't understand it, the union gets blamed for a lot of things that are just not true. There's not a union out there or a union person out there that can organize a company that's treating their workers right. It's just not possible. If they're being fair and treating everybody equal, there's no reason for them to organize. It's only the company that can do the organizing. We've run into that time and time again through the years. That's what organizes people, sticking together, working for one another's benefit. Now, some of the unions are like everything else, every other organization, churches, fraternal groups, all that kind of stuff. You have some bad apples and you have a lot of good apples. So you can't just blame a few for all the things that's going on, because like here in Western Kentucky, the dam up there Kentucky Dam was built with union labor. They had their ups and downs and with what they call labor strife, but they got through it, and they built a successful project because it was built in the 40s, and it's still standing, and it's not had any problems that I'm aware of, major problems. So somebody did a heck of a job. The same thing with the USEC plant out here, what used to be known as Union Carbide. They had those. They built that plant. They built it in a short amount of time for the considering the amount of things that had to be built and done out there. My dad worked out there as a guard in the late 40s and early 50s till he passed away at age 41 with a heart attack. My mom we couldn't have got by without the help that came from the union, which it was a small union, the guards union, and that some of the things that went on. I was only 5 years old when he passed away. I had a sister 3, and my mother was carrying my youngest sister, and that you don't realize till you went up through some of that how the world treated women, working women at that time. She worked at a place called Curley Clothing Company over at Mayfield, and she was glad to have the work, glad to have the job, but it was not a good place to work. It was hot. They did have some things. They had a place called the Clubhouse that did the daycare, and I stayed there from the time I was about 6 years old till I think about 13 or 14. And it was free. It didn't cost the people that worked there anything. But I would go in there to see my mom, and she would be working, making those wool suits and coats and things, and it would be so hot they didn't even have fans. And it would be so hot in there, and that wool and stuff blowing around in the air, you just couldn't imagine what the conditions were like. And they were never able to organize. Mm-hmm. The plant right across town, Merritt, had a union, and it was totally different because I was in there during that same period of time, and it was a totally different place to work. But to see what it done, it has influenced everything in my life. And I hope that by being active and doing things like what I've done, I've never worked for the union on a payroll type basis. In other words, I was never an employee of the union. I worked for a company that had that union. Benny works for the union, but all the work that I did was volunteer work, and I'm proud to have been able to, I think, to have helped several things and improve conditions and people's lives from being involved in the union, and I hope that I have, and I hope that I've done a good job. I feel like I have. I've worked hard at it, and I hope that I've done a good job. Mm-hmm.
I can just pretty well ditto what he said, reiterate everything, but I'm a 41-year member of a union, and not the IM, but total over the all my years.
So what was you're out of high school, what was your first union job?
I went to work at the chair factory in Benton, and that was right out of high school. And then I went to work for General Tar, and I worked there, and then I left there, went in the Army, and then when I came back, I went to work for SKW, UAW plant, and I wanted to serve an apprenticeship.
What is Goodrich now at Calvert?
It is the plant that they call Westlake, and there's a small part of it that's, what is it called, the acrylic acid, Lubrisol.
Okay.
The only part that those are, I think Lubrisol may not even be connected with Goodrich either. I'm not sure.
They're two separate plants.
Two separate plants.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wanted to serve apprenticeship, so I filled out an application, went to work at USEC, and which was Union Carbide at the time. Went through the apprentice trainee program out there.
Now that was which union?
That had been the Steelworkers.
Of course, at the time was OCA,
was
Oil, Chemical, Atomic,
Right.
which is Steelworkers now, right?
Steelworkers now.
Right.
And during that time, they went out on strike and everything, and we had a strike, and the railroad called me to go to work, so I went to work for the railroad and went through an apprenticeship program there also. So I went through a pipe fitter training out here, and then went through the
Now, was that the railroad shop or the railroad itself?
railroad shops.
The shops,
Right.
where Hardy worked.
Right, and I stayed there till 1981, and then I hired in at ISP Chemicals in 1985, August of 1985, and so I've pretty well moved around, but I've always tried to have a union job, and I've educated my children. I was educated on the union dollar. My dad was operator engineer, and my mother worked at a union shop for a short time when she was in Detroit, and So it's just it's the same thing. My story is pretty well basically like Hardy's, but my kids understand where their money comes from, where their education comes from, and so it's done everything for me and my family, and my brothers, my sisters. They all were derived their income derived from a union job somewhere somehow. So it's just our way of our livelihood here in Western Kentucky.
Right.
It's the best job. So
I know a couple of things you're very proud of through your machinist work is the guide dogs program, which you've talked about before, and the other was the American flag. Tell us about that.
well, in 2007 there was $5.3 million worth of American flags imported in the United States. And so I sat down one day and I got this email, and it really bothered me about that much money being spent foreign on American flags. So I sat down and I wrote a resolution, and I got the delegates of the Machinist State Council to pass it, and then the delegates of the AFL-CIO passed it here in Paducah. And we carried it on to the to the AFL-CIO statewide, and then we carried it on to the Machinist Grand Lodge Convention, and it was passed there, and then it went to the national AFL-CIO. The state legislators and senators, state senators, passed it in, I believe it was March of '08. They made it a state law that the American flag was the only flag that could fly over the Capitol, all the Capitol buildings, all the state buildings, and all polling places had to be a USA-made flag. So in September of this year, it went national level, and it was a law passed that the American flag had to be made by domestic hands, by use of domestic material, and that would be the USA-made flag would fly over to the United States Capitol and all the buildings there. But it also included the fact that no illegal aliens could have their hands on the making of that flag, and no one that hires illegal can have a contract producing that flag that would be sold to the United States. So I think that's a good, and I think it protects the American flag that it's made by USA hands. It's made from material that's made in the United States, and so I think that's a good protection. I think it's a wonderful bill, and I'm just proud to be part of it. So
In the time we have left, explain, and of course Hardy was pointing out, he worked for a company that had a union, in the union. You actually were elected to this position by union members, and you're a staffer. Explain what a DBR, Directing Business Representative, does for a district.
Okay, my job in the district is to negotiate contracts, make sure the contracts are adhered to by the company and by the union. Of course, I deal with arbitration cases. I mediate between company and the unions on some cases, but the management, the business management of the district, and negotiating the contracts and making sure everything runs like it's supposed to, that's my responsibility.
And how many individual locals do you have in your jurisdiction?
I have 6 locals, but I have 8 contracts that I'm responsible for. It doesn't sound like a heavy load, but I'm busy every day, so most of the time I'm working with grievances or working with arbitration cases or of some kind, or getting prepared for another contract negotiation.
So you travel to different plants?
I do. The furthest plant away is 65 miles, one way, but and we try to reach out to unhappy workers and try to organize. But like Hardy says, if a company's treating them halfway decent, it's hard to organize somebody. The companies, as long as they keep their word with the people are happy. You just can't organize them. But when the company mistreats somebody, or you get a group of people that's upset with the management or something on that order, then they come to us and want us to try to start organize them, and then most of the time the company will come back and make the changes, and it just works in the company's favor then when the company decides, okay, there's a reason for them being in here, we'll do away with that reason. And anyway, the people usually decide that they're happy like they are, you know. So it's really hard to organize unless the company is just pretty hard-headed and continues down that same path. So,
What do you think makes a good union official?
Well, I don't know. I hope I'm a good union official. It's got to be in your heart. You've got to eat, breathe, and sleep the union. You know, I hope every union official is a good union official, and you know, I don't want to say anybody's a bad one. You know, of course, there's some that probably work harder at being a good official than others, but you know, all in all, I think everybody that's grew up like we did and grew up in the union and everything, I think anybody can be a good union official if they just study and learn the ways and understand the contract. But that's what you got to know. You got to understand what that contract means and how it was negotiated and what it meant when it was negotiated. And you know, there's more to a contract than just saying your wages are this and your benefits are that. You know. It's all the language that's in that contract.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Benny's job is a lot more difficult than say a local president, because he has one contract to know. You've got to be able, in his position, you have to be able to switch back and forth between all the 8 contracts like he's talking about that he has, and each one of those are different. A lot of times. Tremendously different. They're not even comparable. And so you have to be able to switch back and forth, so you have to have your mind in the right place at all times. I think it also takes a concern for people. You have to be concerned about people's plight. And I think you grew up in the country like there in Mayfield and like I did out in the county, in Graves County. And when you dealt with people out in there, their word was their bond. A handshake was like a written contract, and there has to be a certain amount of that in between workers and the management, and it's a union official's job to understand that things change. Sometimes it was easy to agree to something, but things change, and you have to change with them, and that's what usually causes strikes are normally over little things. But as a business agent and as I was the district president up there, you had to make decisions, you know, quick and understand that what had caused the situation to get to the place that it was.
I'm going to have to make a quick decision.
Okay.
We're out of time.
Oh. Well,
Thank you all for being with us. My guest today was Ben Adair and Hardy Williams. They are machinists and monumental movers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.